biggest news in the week was Imo State. It's still quite a heated conversation across the country. A lot of people are still trying to understand the judgments. And I always say, considering the fact that it was a unanimous decision, it's very hard to fault. You don't get very many unanimous decisions from the Nigerian Supreme Court. All 7 judges ruled in favor of Hope Uzodinma becoming the governor, pretty much, of Imo State. So it's hard to fault that. But we're going to try and see what we can dissect from the entire judgment. I have you with me. God bless Otubore and Adeoye Adelaja. Thanks for being here today. Thank you. Of course, I'm sure if you're anybody who's Nigerian, you don't even need to be a political analyst to know what happened in the last couple of days. But what was your takeout from the entire scenario with Imo State?
Thank you for having me one more time. And I think, and also to the viewers, Happy New Year. I think it just shows how bad our electoral system is at the moment. And if we must make progress as a nation, we must change and implement those changes. For me, it was heartbreaking to see that someone who had been sworn in as a governor was going to be asked, was going to be leaving that office, and then someone else was going to come in. So for me, it wasn't the best thing that I was hoping that we would be talking about in 2020. Yeah. And so for me, I think I'm still shocked, but like you said, unanimous decision, and you have to say it's the Supreme Court. It's the final court of arbitration. And I just think that a lot of us are still studying it and trying to see how we can ensure that never happens again.
Yeah. There was a lot of talk about how did the 4th place person become the winner of the elections. The person in 2nd place we hear was basically ruled out on the technicality of being registered with 2 parties or something along those lines. 3rd place dropped their case, which made 4th place automatic, even though people thought, oh, this is a little too convenient because the 4th place candidate is a member of the ruling party, talking about the federal ruling party. Did you think anything about that?
Well, if you look at the entire process, that took place at the Supreme Court, is still subject to, how do I put it this way now? There are a lot of contentious, statements about the entire process, because the winner of the election was declared a winner by INEC. He didn't declare himself as a winner. Yeah. So if we have to look at the problem now from the point of, Supreme Court, that they said in 388 polling units, the person that took 4th, his election was nullified, right? So now the Supreme Court is now coming up and say, oh, this thing was done illegally. So we are bringing back this figure to add to his figure, and they pronounce him as a winner. So there are questions, emerging from that, what Supreme Court did. That is it the only person that his election or results were annulled in those 388 polling units in Imo? Does it mean that other candidates, even including the previous winner that was sent packing, he does not have score or election result in those polling units? That's the question. Again, when they look at the entire vote, the accredited vote, by the time they added the 388 polling units to the whole Senator Hope Uzodinma, result, they find out that it is way above the entire people that are accredited to vote. So it's still subject to problem right now, because. But
there's no other room for appeal, because the Supreme Court is the final
if you look at what's happening now, people are saying that they were giving precedent that Supreme Court can reverse or review itself. I have interacted with 2 lawyers, who they told me that it is possible that Supreme Court, though they are final, their judgment is final, they are not supreme because they are infallible, but they can review that judgment. So it's still It's still
Well,
subject to public
I think the biggest
debate.
takeaway from me, which is what I hear, I think, from both of you, is that the central figure, which I think was the biggest issue for me on social media when this started, and the judgment was declared, and it instantly became a partisan issue on social media.
Yeah,
it became
right.
APC versus PDP. Oh, we've won. Oh, you lost. Oh, you're complaining. Oh, haha. People were trying to make it a us against issue when. And the most important body that should have been addressed was not being talked about, which is INEC, for me, because this is not the first time. There's a reason why we're going to be having Anambra and Edo elections again this year, because it has become almost a routine for the electoral body to constantly get things wrong. And this, I think, has been the most shocking by a lot of people's standards, because we are so deep in our democracy now, and at this level, you would expect that things like this are not happening. Electoral reforms keeps being thrown around. There are people who have said, or maybe it has come back to bite a governor or the ex-governor, Ehedioha, who was deputy speaker and had probably had the opportunity to push reforms like this. What should we be looking at with regards to our electoral system going forward? Because we have 2 elections coming up this year. We'll have some more next year, building up, of course, to the next general elections.
Okay, so if you look at it, I think you actually stated something that is missing from the conversation, which is INEC, right? So this is what I found out. Our system and the state we currently operate as a people is wrongly designed. So INEC is not an outsourced entity. It is still Nigerians who run INEC. And when you look at how INEC is funded, INEC's funding comes from the executive. That should not be. So there's the first institutional framework and design that as a people who are practicing self-government, we must agree on. So INEC is not an outsourced institution, right? So it is still within the whims and caprices of the executive. So that's one. 2, before the 2019 general elections, President Muhammadu Buhari refused to sign the Electoral Act. Now, the amended Electoral Act. Now, there were a lot of analysis. His spokesperson, his representative at the at the assembly, at the National Assembly, ITA, said there were drafting concerns. The first time you said there were drafting concerns, the second time there were drafting concerns, the third time there were drafting concerns. When you look at some of the highlights and some of the new amendment that the new Electoral Act is trying to help us solve, most of these issues where INEC scores its own goal against itself would have been really solved. So what we're literally saying is that for us to take the first step, Ebuka, is the president comes back from the UK and he's revisiting that document and saying, look, we need to deliver something for the new generation so that we don't have this happening again. If not, Ondo will be like this, Edo will be like this, Anambra will be like that. So the first thing is to get the amendment and get the electoral reforms done.
What sorts of reforms should we still, because I believe electoral reform should be a continuous process, right? I mean, we keep trying to make it a more computerized system. The people who believe, we're still stuck in the dark ages, which is why it's still very easy to manipulate. People also believe the last election, sort of what INEC tried to do wasn't too bad, where every single procedure was verified at every level until it got to the collation center. But things still went wrong. Are we ripe enough? Because I know it's a question that keeps being asked, but are we really ripe enough for electronic voting and the electronic process in Nigeria, knowing how things work here?
I am a proponent of electronic voting, and this has been a campaign that I personally have been, taking for a very long time now. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, at what point do we have this problem that leads to this manipulation of our electoral system? Okay? Now, let me just give you a quick review. Electorate comes out from their home to the polling unit. They do accreditation. Sometimes they say you accredit, you go back and come back at a particular time to come and vote. Then again, they will tell you that you accredit and you vote at the same time and you move on. Okay? Now, what do we need to do? What we need to do is simple. It's just that there are some people who are cheating the system, are making it difficult, are selling this narrative that, we are not yet ripe enough, we have a lot of illiterate people who don't understand the system. I keep telling them, is it not the same ballot system, ballot paper, fiscal ballot paper you are going to put on a computer system, on a screen, for people to scroll, for them to vote, and they move immediately? It's as simple as that, okay? Now, they need to, Buhari, whoever that's going to be the president, if Buhari is able to sign before, going in 2023, fantastic. But if not, we need to sign it that from the collation center, we should be able to transmit results. Because it is because we have this manual collation, manual result and all that. That's why you see people, you see thugs, they will just come immediately and bundle the ballot box and they hijack and they run away. But if these things are done electronically, even though you come and hijack whatever, it's rubbish. In fact, you are taking empty what is not useful to you because the result has already been computed. Immediately you are doing, where they have a central server somewhere that will be like a backup. You understand? Whatever they are imputing in all the polling units across the country will be having a copy.
The argument continues to be something as simple as card readers we haven't even gotten right.
No, let me say something. Let me say something.
Okay, go on.
It is, I've said this thing on this show before. You walk into any bank now, you get your ATM in less than 10 minutes. This is the same ATM that you're going to spend like 1 or 2 weeks before you get. I am telling you, Ebuka, this thing is not a rocket science. It is the political will that some people don't have that is making us to have this problem we have. But if we insist as Nigerian people that we want a seamless system, we want to be like America, we want to be like UK, but we don't want to do what UK and America are doing to be who they are. You understand? That is just the problem.
Yeah, you're going to say something?
Yes, I was going to say that. So I was speaking about the amended Electoral Act. Some of these issues were captured in the amendment, right, about transmitting results electronically. And now one of the other things is that INEC was given unfettered powers to conduct elections using electronic voting. In the amended act. He said something that I think we must take to the bank. You cannot be UK or US if you don't do what US and UK do. So if we want to improve our system, like you said, before we used to apply for ATM card, like you said,
yes,
it takes time. But today you can get it in how many seconds? Just right there, they will give it to you. So what it means is that we as a people have to bring those ingenuity that we bring to solving problems in businesses and bring it to politics because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And there's no going back on it.
How independent is the Independent National Electoral Commission and how much more independent can it be? Because that's also an ongoing conversation about this is a body that has its head appointed by the executive body. So to some extent, do they have some control over them? We also have the state electoral commissioners as well, who some governors might. We're not saying that they do, but I mean the allegations, and these are all, we don't know. Is it possible for them to be a little more independent, and how do we actually get that to happen?
Let me quickly say, let me say something.
Okay,
let me say something. He had already provided answer to the question. We all know whoever pays the piper dictates the tune. If we have a system where INEC will be self-funded, I remember Alhaji Buba Galadima said something that if he's made the INEC chairman, he's going to conduct election without collecting a penny from the federal government. You understand what I'm saying? It is who that is funding the INEC that will dictate to them what they should do, and they don't have. There's
also the argument that we had in 2014-15. We had a president and an INEC and he lost the election. So I'm talking about President Jonathan now at the time, who lost an election with an INEC body that was independent in some sense, even though there's an argument that, okay, maybe the election was not the freest and fairest we've ever had. But my point being, it is possible, right? Isn't it?
It is possible. So we need to understand the very fundamentals here. So you had a president who appointed an INEC chairman, and yet he lost an election. That was actually a reality of principle. Goodluck Jonathan had an understanding that the process of how democracy works is that my ambition is not worth destroying the country for. And there is the limit to how much my ambition can affect the nation. So fundamentally, you need to have people who understand what democracy is. Whether you are the executive who signed on the monies for INEC, is an understanding first. The money is not yours. It is state apparatus. You are only holding it in trust. If people understand this reality, they internalize it, and it is spread across state institutions, you will find that even if the INEC chairman is appointed by the president, the person who is appointed understands that they are independent. Classical example. I mean, look at what is happening in the US right now. The Inspector General, the ICG in America, who took the whistleblower's complaint to Congress, was appointed by Trump. But the understanding is that I am holding this position because I am serving my country. So I do not owe my allegiance to the president who appoints me or who appointed me, but my responsibility is to the American state. So,
Mr. President has said that he's definitely going to leave in 2023.
Yes.
With leaving Nigerians with the best electoral system possible to make sure that in 2023 the elections are the freest and fairest. I don't know, why are we laughing at that?
Well, let me.
You don't think that's a possibility?
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. It's just like I have realized what I have done, the process that ushered me in as a president. So I'm going now. He has been struggling. Let me use that word. He's been struggling to paint himself, to endear himself in the minds of Nigerians that he is not all what they've been calling him. You understand? Some people will call him, they will say he's a major general. Some people will say he's a tyrant. Some people, they use all sort of classifications.
But he's Mr. President.
But yeah, he's the president. So now, we all saw the process in 2015 and in 2019. You understand? So if the Mr. President is now telling us that, in 2023, I'm going to leave the best, electoral, system for Nigerian people. People will emerge, in incredible ways. The first thing, we are not ready, we are not interested in just mere words. Let us first go and sign the electoral.
But he has said that. That means he's probably going to do that. He still has about 3 years. The
question is, so when you were asking the question and then you asked it and we were laughing, it wasn't because I wasn't laughing at the president. I was just laughing at the fact that you had the opportunity of doing something. You didn't do it because it was going to favor you, right? So now you're saying that you're going to leave the best electoral system for the country by 2023. No. You've been in office now for almost a year.
I mean, there are probably other precedents.
Case in point.
Isn't it?
Case in point. When Yadua emerged in 2007.
2007.
It didn't take him long to say, I understand the challenges of the system. We've got to ensure that we make progress. He didn't say, for the sake that there were more pressing issues, say he's not going to talk about it. Because the very foundation of democracy, any country that must practice self-governance, Ebuka, electoral integrity is the bedrock upon which every democracy is built. So the president, I am challenging him and I'm calling on his people to tell him when he comes back from the UK, he should revisit the document. If there's a drafting problem, he should bring it to the fore. If he wants to leave a good legacy for Nigerians, as he has promised, let him come back from the UK and say, guys, I need that electoral act. What are the drafting problems? Let's fix it because our new generation of leaders cannot have what happened in Kogi in 2019. Because before you know what is happening now, INEC goes into Ondo, goes into Edo, everything is scattered, and before you know what, 2023 is here, and they say we've left.
Good legacy.
We're looking at the Amotekun issue. It's been a very sensitive one in the Southwest. And just a bit of a background, the Southwest, they flagged off operations of, we call it Western Nigeria Security Network. Supposed to be, they're not armed, it's supposed to be like sort of a vigilante for the Southwest states, but it's been said it's illegal now by the government. And there's a lot of conversation as to what it should be. Are there other parts of it that operate somewhere in the north that are allowed to run? Why is this any different? Why shouldn't it be allowed to run? You know, is it conflicting with the police? Which I think is what everybody seems to feel.
Yeah.
Because we already have a police that should be doing this. Why do we need an agency like this?
So when you look at it, first, let's go back to the Constitution. So the current Nigerian Constitution puts security in the, I think, exclusive list for the federal government, usually.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the fact that we are also operating a federation, a federating unit kind of system where the federating states have some level of responsibility. First, if you look at the chief responsibility of governors of state, they are called the chief security officers of states. So, do we need an Amotekun? The answer is yes. Looking at the prevailing security challenge that the country is going through right now. So, because when you look at it and say, it used to be, we just hear these things like, oh, there was a problem somewhere, but today it's no longer so. Today now we hear of people being kidnapped, people can't go back home, and governors can no longer sit idly by and watch their people live in fear. So if Amotekun are, the officers are not going to be armed and that they're just helping to ensure that local security is done properly, I do not see any reason why the federal government and through the Attorney General would just proclaim that it is illegal. It is not in his position to interpret the law and say that something is illegal. He is the Attorney General of the Federation. He needs to find a way to understand how this thing works with the state. And funny enough, Ibuka, I'm not sure that they were unaware that this was coming.
But they say a stitch in time saves nine. What you allow today becomes a monster tomorrow. So, okay, so you allow a Amotekun today, they are not armed. Tomorrow you don't know what it might become. I mean, there's a few references I've even made to the Bakassi boys in Anambra State back in the day who were notorious. I mean, they quelled crime to an extent, but a lot of innocent people were also killed. And they took laws to their own hands by killing people, at least allegedly, which was what they were sort of known for. So, okay, we allow this now, and they are going to be walking around with whips maybe. I don't know how that's supposed to work. Who says they're not going to carry guns tomorrow? Who says people might not do things in the name of this body and claim that it was this body that did it? So I guess that's what the federal government is looking at. They say, okay, we do not know how to put a handle on this. Isn't that a valid point?
Well, let me start from the reason why Amotekun came into existence. Because we cannot shy away from the root cause of the problem. Because we saw how the daughter of one of the foremost Yoruba leader, Afenifere leader, that's Pa Ruben Fasoranti, the daughter was killed. Up to today, there hasn't been any investigation. We're even talking about someone who has a name, you understand? What about people who does not have name, you understand, that have been kidnapped, that we are not aware of and all that? Look at the security situation in Southwest, where you will just see some people, you know, they come into your farm, they kidnap people, they do all sorts of things. Police will not go into the bush to go and police the bush. But if we have this kind of Amotekun, you understand, what they need to do, according to the draft that I've seen, is for them to gather intelligence and work with the police, the army, and the civil defense. You understand? That's what they are constituted for, primarily. And looking at it from the point of law, the governors that came together, they are not illiterates. They know definitely that there must be terms and reference of operation.
Neither is the federal government illiterate.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm just trying to bring out the issue. You understand? Why we need to forge ahead with Amotekun, because the fear, nursed by some section of people could just be as a result of their political, selfishness. You understand? But no person, just like my brother here, God's power said, is that we cannot have the governors who are chief security officers of their state sitting idly without doing anything when kidnapping, banditry, and all that is going around in their various states. But now, The point Malami is making is that there's no legislation backing it up. The governors have they came out recently that they are working on how to to back it up with laws in various states.
So there are two things I'm looking at now, which, because we've always said the Nigerian police force is understaffed. There are way too few policemen for the number of Nigerians that we have. Do we need more policemen? Does it help a situation like this? Or secondly, do we need to revive the state police conversation?
I mean, absolutely. There is no reason why we should not have the state police conversation going on. I mean, the current vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is someone who believes that state policing is important in the 21st century. If you go to the United States, you have state police, right? Part of the issue why that hasn't also materialized is simply because we think that governors or some political actors will use it for their own benefit. But this is the major thing I think we must understand. If the Amotekun was probably called People's Security Network, right? People's Security Network, it probably wouldn't have had the kind of uproar.
Why do you think so?
Yeah, because it's Amotekun. And it has a Yoruba name to it. So people just think that, it's a Yoruba thing. People who live in the Southwest are not just Yorubas. We have the Hausas, the Igbos, the Robos, the Jaws, the Fulanese. All of us live in the Southwest. Amotekun is not going to protect only Yoruba people, right? So when you look at the psychology of this conversation and the psyche of what is going on, I think first and foremost, a branding issue is what most people are looking at, because when you see the response from people from other parts of the country, they're not even talking about the positivity. They're not looking at the fact that this is a response to a prevailing security threat or situation. They're talking about Amotekun. So someone says, oh, there's Hisba in the north, and then you have Bakassi in. This is not about the issue. Another thing I'm going to say is this. Nigeria as we have it today is at a very, very critical juncture. And what people are looking at is that these institutions are springing up because people are planning for the untold. But this is my take. My take is there is no problem that has faced human beings that humans cannot solve. There is nothing that has faced us as a nation that we cannot solve. Every problem that this country is going through right now, they are man-made and they can be resolved, and we can fix them if we respect the social contract of coming together as one people and moving forward.
All right, we'll have to end it on that note, unfortunately. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Buka.
Still early in the year,
Yeah, right.
but the year has started with a lot of heat already.
Absolutely.
I'm just hoping that means that by the middle of the year, everything would have calmed down, and 2020 will be the year that we all expected it to be. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
But like I always say, you can follow the conversation on Twitter at Robin Minds Now is the handle. Please use the hashtag Robin Minds when you tweet at us. Do have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday.
Don't just stand